The Quran teaches that Jesus was a prophet and his disciples were righteous. In Surah 352, they pledge to follow Allah, and in 355, Allah promises to exalt them until the day of resurrection. So naturally, Muslims hold Jesus' disciples in high regard. But here's the twist. Muslims obviously see Christian teachings as totally opposed to Islam. Christianity teaches that God became man and died on the cross, ideas Muslims find to be blasphemous. Muslims believe Christian teachings were corrupted, but when? If we look back, these blasphemous beliefs were part of the earliest church. This means the corruption would have had to have happened during the time of the disciples. The prime suspect, Paul. He's often accused of turning Jesus' message into one about him being God. Some even claim that Paul clashed with Jesus' family and original disciples, sidelining them to push his own views. One major point of contention, Jesus told his followers to uphold the law, while Paul said that a person is justified by faith apart from the works of the law. Muslims point this out as a huge contradiction. Then there's the argument that Paul never even met the historical Jesus. Critics suggest Paul was more interested in turning Jesus into the Son of God, but was Paul really deliberately spreading something that he knew to be false? Nope. Let's just kill that notion right here in this video. Paul definitely wasn't lying. Paul believed Jesus was crucified, and before his conversion, he was actively hunting down Christians with the high priest's approval. Switching sides wasn't a smart career move, it was practically a death sentence. Paul was risking his life for converting. What about wealth? Well, Paul definitely wasn't in it for the money. Being an apostle wasn't a pathway to luxury. Paul himself said, "To this very hour we go hungry and thirsty, we are in rags, we are brutally treated, we are homeless." He reminded the Thessalonians, "We worked night and day so that we wouldn't be a burden to anyone while we preached the gospel." He wasn't in it for personal gain. He was literally working to fund his own message. Did Paul become a Christian to gain a reputation? That doesn't seem likely either. He was a star student under Gamaliel, a respected Sanhedrin member. If Paul wanted clout, staying a zealous Pharisee would have kept him in the spotlight. Instead, he embraced a religion despised by Jews and Gentiles alike. Paul himself admitted that apostles were seen as the scum of the earth. If fame was his goal, joining a movement that got him labeled as human trash wasn't a great strategy. Well, maybe Paul was after power. Not even close. Nope. He called himself the least of all apostles, and when the Corinthians argued about who was the most important apostle, Paul quickly shut it down. Power just wasn't his game. Compare that to Muhammad, who wielded political and military power, leading conquests and commanding armies. As for sex, Paul lived a celibate life and held up his own chasteness as an example of holiness. Compare that to Muhammad, who took multiple wives, including marrying his own adopted son's ex-wife and a 9-year-old girl, not to mention all his sex slaves. Paul was the exact opposite. No power grabs, no self-serving indulgence.